Bandwidth for changelog is provided by Fastly. Learn more at fastly.com.
I'm Dave Gandy, and you're listening to The Changelog.
Welcome back, everyone. This is The Changelog, and I'm your host, Adam Stacoviak. This is episode 226, and today I went solo talking to Dave Gandy, the creator of Font Awesome. You've seen it, you know it, you love it. It's awesome. But Font Awesome 5 is here, kind of. It's on Kickstarter right now, just over $500,000 in backing. But I talked to Dave about his beginnings, where Font Awesome started, where it's going, where it's been. We have 3 sponsors today: Code School, Linode, and Rollbar. Our first sponsor of the show is our friends at Code School, and if you want to learn something new, a proven method is to learn by doing, and that's exactly the way Code School works. You learn to program by doing with hands-on courses. Code School's courses are organized into paths based on technologies like HTML and CSS, JavaScript, hot topics like React and Angular, Ruby, Python, .NET, iOS, Git, databases, and even electives that take you off the beaten path. Let's say you want to learn React. You can start level 1 of Code School's React course, which begins with a quick video lesson on React components. After the video, you get hands-on practice building with components using in-browser coding challenges. There's no hassle, no setup, just learning. And the best part is when you use our special URL, codeschool.com/changelog, you save an extra $10 per month. Instead of paying $29, you pay $19 because you're a listener of this show. Again, use our special URL, codeschool.com/changelog. Don't Google it. That's the only way to get our special deal. Once again, codeschool.com/changelog. And now onto the show. All right, we're here with Dave Gandy. Dave is the creator of Font Awesome, and I'm riding solo on this show, so Jared is not here today. But Dave, what's up, man? How are you?
Hey, how's it going?
So, Font Awesome. I mean, you got awesome in the name. How awesome is that?
Yeah, it's that was a very fun part of the naming process, is how the name turned out. That's for sure.
So, I mean, this is not a new project. This is, and I have to apologize too, because the changelog's been around for a while. We've wanted to cover Font Awesome at least a couple times, and it's just never made it past the us getting in contact with you mile marker. But you're now getting ready to version from, I think, 4.6 to 5. You got a Kickstarter out there. You got a lot of fun stuff happening, but this isn't a new project. So how far back does this go?
Yeah, this traces back about 4.5 years now to a startup I was working at ages ago, still with my co-founder, Travis Chase. And I was working on our company's website, and I was griping and complaining about how bad icons were and how hard they were to use. You'd have to bring them into Photoshop. You'd have to individually color them. Then maybe you got to deal with some PNG sprite maps, right? It was just kind of a mess.
Oh, yes.
And there were some other folks that were doing some really interesting things, I thought, with icons as fonts, but they had some problems around accessibility. So started digging around it. Continued to gripe and complain, and Travis, in his usual fashion, told me to shut up and solve the problem myself. And so that's where Font Awesome came out of.
Wow. I mean, nothing better than a project like this with the years. I mean, I know so many people and so many websites that use Font Awesome. So, I mean, that's in and of itself, a tribute back to what you've done here. But the best thing is when you scratch your own itch, you scratch this problem that's like, this is really bugging me. How do I solve this problem? So your co-founder / buddy Travis is who kind of pushed you to do. Is that right?
Yeah. So Travis and I, it's kind of funny how the world works out sometimes. Travis and I actually are childhood best friends of 25 plus years.
Wow.
So we go way, way, way back. We both are from a little tiny town called Carl Junction, Missouri. Big shout out to everybody there who's probably listening to this.
Like 1,000 people, maybe 2,000 people in the town.
4,123 or so the sign said outside of my house where I grew up.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
But we grew up together. I went off to school up in Boston at MIT and spent a lot of time around the startup community. There, Travis stuck around Carl Junction, married his high school sweetheart, and about, goodness, it's probably 6 or 7 years ago now, I figured out that Travis had quietly become the best software developer I knew on Earth.
What?
Yeah, it's really, really funny how that works out.
How do you do that on you? He didn't tell you? He didn't say like, hey, I'm trying this or I'm doing
No,
this?
I knew that he was a developer. I just didn't know he was that good. And so once I figured that out, we've basically been working together professionally ever since.
Wow. And so take us back to, I mean, one thing we like to do on this show is kind of get a history. I mean, one thing the history, with this show might be the Fallen Awesome history. But the other history might be, to some degree, what you just shared there is your history. So you mentioned that you and Travis were childhood best friends. He secretly became this awesome software developer. But what's your history? What goes back? You said be in the pre-show that, I don't know if I should say this for you, but you can say it for yourself, but you're more designer than developer.
Yeah, it's definitely true. I think in general, well, I'm not really either one. Truthfully, I kind of sit in this weird half world. I think most real designers think I'm a developer, and most real developers tend to think I'm a designer. So,
See, we always are so self-deprecating as people, I mean, right? I mean, it's my wife calls it negative self-talk, and I do it to myself all the time. And we haven't done it yet, but we have this set of sub taglines that kind of define who we are here at Changelog, and one of them is not an imposter. And I think you're not an imposter. I think you're exactly who you are. I think you're both designer and developer, and you can claim both roles.
well, I think the truth is for me where it really goes back to is sort of a general outlook on life. Icon fonts, the natural restrictions inherent in that medium. I'm not an illustrator by any means, but the natural restrictions of designing at a very small size and trying to make it readable was playing to my strengths. Not like I said, not an illustrator, but I can handle that particular set of constraints really well. And the truth is, Font Awesome actually came out of a personal journey of mine in trying to figure out after college this whole world of who I actually was.
Mm,
And I think a big part of that is that we in the world spend a lot of time worrying about our weaknesses, things that we're bad at.
that's true.
And the truth is, I think we get a lot more traction in general in life and a lot more satisfaction out of worrying about our strengths instead, playing to our strengths. And so there was a point at which I realized that the worlds I really love to live in, I really love to live in these intersections of art and technology, the left brain, right brain, where both are required. And so Font Awesome just sort of naturally came out of that particular, I guess, really adjustment in my own personal philosophy on life. I think that everyone is a unique and diverse set of strengths. And if we will play to those strengths of ours, that I think there's so much that gets unlocked by us when that happens.
So take us back. You said you were in college. What's your story there? When did you become or not become a designer, or become or not become a developer? What was the thing that sort of pulled you into it, into this intersection, as you mentioned?
Yeah, so for undergrad at MIT, I studied mechanical engineering, and I really always gravitated towards product design specifically. I found out the place where I really excelled there was in sort of the common sense, robust approach to engineering. And design is really a lot of that. Design is really thinking about the natural restrictions in the medium and the people that you're designing for, the situation, and trying to really think on behalf of those individuals how to best tackle the problem in the simplest, most robust way possible. And really at the time, all of my jobs happened to be in software, but I've always had a passion for arts and design. And it really came in a move out to Los Angeles. I spent a couple of years in Los Angeles, and being around the arts and such creative people really brought that side of things back to life. And so, always very passionate about technology and art, but it was really that reawakening that sort of is where real emphasis on product design specifically came from. So, all of my jobs were in computers at the time. And it just sort of gravitated that direction. Instead of physical product design, started focusing on digital product design. And there were so many parallels. And at the time, the industry was well far behind physical product design. Physical products, there was a very good process established for user-centric design. And it wasn't really until Apple came out with the iPhone that became really an industry-wide sort of a thing, where people really saw in software how much design and the interface really mattered.
Yeah, it seemed like the iPhone really did wake up a lot of people that user experience matters. And I know it seems so simple to say it's just a phone or whatever, but that kind of company really helped shape and change people's minds towards what a good product actually is.
Yeah, it really did. And for me personally, my my sort of career trajectory shifted from feeling like I was talking to a brick wall at software companies when I was talking about design.
Because they're like, what is that? Why
Yeah,
should I
yeah,
care?
exactly. What's the priority there? Look, we've got this machine that prints cash. I don't know why we need to worry about that.
Okay, so let's get closer to the beginnings of Fun Awesome. You mentioned that it was scratching your own itch. You've spent some years. I mean, I'm actually surprised. I don't know your history, so that's why I'm surprised. Not so much that you're not worthy of this, but that you have a background at MIT studying mechanical engineering. What brought you into that field? Like, what made you think that's where? I guess what got you to MIT? You must be pretty smart.
Uh, yeah, I mean, yeah, I think people tend to think that until they get to MIT, and then everybody thinks they're below average once they get there.
Right?
But
They're like, I'm actually not that smart. I'm trying to be really smart, and this is a place where you get smart.
yeah, and the one thing that's really true is that MIT is good for nothing if being good for your ego. That is a really, really good place to figure out and figure out a little bit of who you personally are in your own identity.
Right.
And so, yeah, there's a big kind of there's a big path actually even taken through my time at MIT. But I think originally for me, I mean, gosh, I grew up playing with Legos when I was 5 years old. My parents got me the original Lego castle. I just always liked making things, always liked building things. And so when it came time to go to college, it was really just about, where can I keep doing that? Where can I learn from people that know how to do this? Where can I build? And I'm the kind of guy that's always been, I've never really enjoyed learning for its own sake. I've always really enjoyed learning for doing sake. And truth is, when I was in fifth grade, I saw a PBS special about these kids at MIT building these robots. And they had this contest to see who could get the most ping pong balls. And that was really the time in which I was just fascinated by that. But it's still, a kid from Missouri, it still wouldn't have been something that I would have even thought of as a possibility at all. I think a lot of times kids don't even realize the possibility and just how attainable so many things actually are. But I was lucky enough, I had a couple of teachers who had, and again, this is middle of nowhere in Missouri, but I had a couple of teachers who had kids who went to MIT. I had another teacher who had, was really, really kind of understood the whole college admissions process. And so what wouldn't have been even possible really came about because of, a few relationships in my life.
We have similar paths to a degree.
Yeah.
And I would say the similarities is not MIT. Okay. So I didn't go there. But the similarities is definitely a small town and an uphill battle to get to where you're at today. Because that's my story. Like I grew up, I don't often tell this on the changelog mostly because Jared and I are together and we're kind of focused on the guest, but in this case, we're kind of sharing some stuff here. But
yeah,
I grew up in this small town in southwestern Pennsylvania called Maxwell. You probably can't even find it on the map. That's like, it just doesn't get there unless you zoom all the way in. Like that's when it matters, is when you're all the way in on the zoom. And I grew up poor, grew up in a place where, opportunities weren't handed out. It was very much a blue collar type area. Everyone around me was blue collar, and all I knew was blue collar. I never ever thought that I would be where I'm at today. And it was only by people around me, influencing me every step of the way. And those influences are all unique in their own right, but it was all those incremental influencers throughout my life that got me to where I'm at. And it seems somewhat similar to your story.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. I think one of the real key things for me in my entire life is just the key, just the value of other people, and not just for the benefits you get, but for in and of themselves, intrinsically, for their own uniqueness and who they are. But, Travis and I grew up with a third friend of ours, Ryan. Ryan ended up going to MIT the year before I did. Not a lot of kids from our high school really ever went anywhere out of state for college. And so it was kind of a big deal that he blazed that path. And so Travis and I and Ryan grew up really good friends. And it's just strange sometimes how life works out, where you've got good people around you that just rub off and become such good positive influences. And it's especially strange when it happens for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
So me, Travis and Ryan, we still get together on a pretty regular basis and still see each other pretty often.
That's very cool. So let's fast track a bit to Font Awesome. We're going to take a break here in probably a few minutes, but I want to tee up what the core topic is here. Font Awesome 5 is where you're at now. You get a Kickstarter out there. You scratched your own itch to get here. You know, what was it, 5-6 years ago that this was started? How long ago did?
Yeah, I think it was March of maybe 2012 when we first released Font Awesome.
Okay. So it's a bit 4 years, you know, and some change. So this is a widely used project. This is an open source project. I'm not sure yet of the stability in terms of money or sustaining or employment. I know you have Fort Awesome, which I thought was actually a ripoff. Now I find out that you're actually behind it. I had no idea that you were. So yeah, we'll break that open as well. But
absolutely,
help us understand what Font Awesome is. Give us the breakdown there. And then we'll kind of from there we'll go into our first break. But I'll lead you into that. But help me understand what Font Awesome is.
Yeah, so Font Awesome is really a set of icons that everybody needs for their website. Helps you to easily put social media icons, maybe an up arrow or a home icon or a hamburger menu. Allows you to easily put that on your website and then style them the same way you would style with regular text. So Font Awesome is the same size, the same color, the same drop shadow of the text around it. So you already know how to change it and how to style it. And as a bit of a bonus, it's also vector based. And so no matter how large you make those icons, no matter if you're on Retina or not, they'll be perfect.
This has come around too in an age where I think Retina was just becoming more and more popular around 2012.
Yeah,
it was certainly there. I think version 3 was it? Version 4 of the iPhone was Retina, first Retina, and then even then you had like the iPads that weren't Retina yet. They were still. I remember having a non-Retina iPad and being like, "Oh, I've got to have a Retina one because that thing is so clear to see." And that's where it really, really matters to have like vector, scalable, font-based, same size, those kinds of things for icon clarity on a website.
Yeah, it's really interesting. We got really lucky with the timing of a lot of what we were doing. Retina was a huge, huge thing. We obviously had nothing to do with Retina, but we happened to have a product that was already sitting out there that would meet those needs really, really well.
So that wasn't on purpose. That was sort of like by accident in a way.
No, that was definitely not on purpose, and that was largely by accident. I mean, I think part of it was that just the inherent superiority of vectors in design, making it so easy to change it. That Retina was just a fallout of a lot of the other advantages that packaging icons into a typeface gave you.
So here you are now. You're on Font Awesome, by the way, if you're still catching up, and as I kind of am as well. But it's on GitHub. It's an open source project. You've got to date 46,000-ish plus stars. You know, almost 8,000 forks. So people are forking this, making their own, submitting pull requests, things like that. There's lots of people watching this thing. Almost 1,200 watchers. The question before we go into the break is why open source? Why was that the way for this? Because it's been open source since day one, right?
Yeah, it's been open source since day one. I think a big part of it is, you know, just kind of growing up with the mentality, you know, and learning as a designer, and as you know, somewhat as a developer, having benefited from open source so much. You know, I didn't see this as a you know, a business opportunity at all. That's not really my background at all. And so it just seemed obvious that this would be an open source thing. And we were doubly scratching our own itch here because we were using an early version of, you know, back then it was called Twitter Bootstrap. Now it's just Bootstrap. But the icons that they were including at the time were all raster based. So you'd have to pick your, you know, the white color or the black color. And then they didn't scale up, and they were, you know, a little brittle to work with. They were, you know, nice and a really, really small size. But we decided for that first version to include every single icon that Twitter Bootstrap included, except for ours would be vector. They would be the same color as everything around it and would be really easy to control. And so, you know, between that and Retina coming out, we got really lucky in terms of the timing of other products that happened to be out there for how, you know, for where Font Awesome's success came from too.
That's definitely a good place to break them. We'll come back and talk about that luck, so to speak. So let's break here. We'll be right back. Linode is our cloud server of choice. Get up and running in seconds with your choice of Linux distro, resources, and node location, SSD storage, 40 gigabit network, Intel E5 processors. Use the promo code changelog20 for a $20 credit, 2 months free. One of the fastest, most efficient SSD cloud servers is what we're building our new CMS on. We love Linode. We think you'll love them too. Again, use the code changelog20 for $20 credit. Head to linode.com/changelog to get started. Now we're back from our break with Dave Gandy, creator of Font Awesome, and it's open source, by the way, so you can go to fontawesome.io, check that out. And the top is a link, which we haven't really talked about much yet, is the announcement of Font Awesome 5, specifically the Kickstarter. It's a link to the Kickstarter, so we'll talk about that here in a bit. But Dave, before the break, you mentioned right place, right time, being lucky. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I think that I think in life, a lot of times, it's sort of obvious that in order to get somewhere that you want to go in life, that you've got to be persistent, you've got to work hard. And I think that's something that our community and the startup world in general is really, really acutely tuned into. That hard work, you're not going to get good results without hard work. But I think the thing that the community has a hard time with is this notion that maybe that it's a combination of hard work and luck. It's not one or the other, but it's this strange mix of both. And I think that that's definitely true in my case. I mean, it's interesting. We've in trying to start a company out of really Font Awesome, we've been through a lot of iterations of a lot of different things, and so it's really cool to see the Font Awesome 5 Kickstarter doing really well. But there's a lot of hard work that goes into that. But in terms of luck, there's so many things that can't be attributed to your own hard work, and I think that it's a little bit disingenuous sometimes to do so. But you got to have both. You've got to have for the really disproportionately sized success. You're going to have hard work and you're going to have luck. And you're not going to get nearly as much luck without a lot of hard work. But I think that they really go together.
When I think about this project, I think, some of the things you just said there was you've had some iterations where I'm not sure the exact words, but to a degree, trying to be successful or trying to, turn it into not so much a business, but sustainability to some degree.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that equates to just simply making money or whatnot, but we'll get to your Kickstarter here in a bit. But I just want to tee this up saying that currently you're at nearly $500,000 in backers when your original request was just simply $30,000. So let's not go into that yet, but just for the listeners, like if you haven't gone to the Kickstarter yet, $500,000. So what I want to talk about here is how this began as an open source project, how you wanted to give back because you had already gotten so much back from open source. You were in the right place at the right time. You called it luck. You talked about Retina becoming a thing. You talked about Twitter Bootstrap, not just called Bootstrap. The icon set there where they were rasterized. They weren't scalable like Font Awesome made available. Right place, right time, whatever. Let's talk about Font Awesome specifically, like getting to the piece where what were some of the things that you tried to do that I guess made it to what it is now? Not so much now, but like, with the Kickstarter, you're trying to make money. You're turning it into a business of some sort of a money making product that is also open source and has open source roots. Give me some of the the fails, the successes, the bloody knuckles along the way. What were some of those things for you?
So a couple of years ago, Travis and I were working together at a different place, and Font Awesome those first 2 years had just continued to grow at a rate that we couldn't really ignore anymore. And so we started talking about, maybe, this is a way for us to continue to get a work together. I mean, for me, a lot of the motivation of starting a company is getting to work with the best people on earth that I've ever met. And I don't just mean people professionally. I mean, like as human beings too. And so I'm unbelievably proud of the team here that we've got at Font Awesome of Travis Chase, Rob Madole, and Brian Talbot. We have a really, really just stellar and spectacular team. And I think for us, that's sort of the foundation of a lot of this is continuing to work with great, spectacular, amazingly talented people. And the business is sort of a vehicle for that, truthfully. And so some of the things that we've tried along the way, we've got what I think is a fantastic service called Fort Awesome. If you actually look at the GitHub repo itself, the organization is Fort Awesome, and the project is Font Awesome. And that was always sort of a play there. Fort Awesome, the name itself comes from an old episode of News Radio. Funny little, very memorable scene there. And so every place I had lived up until that point in life, I had just referred to as Fort Awesome. I also ran across, when I was living in Boston, I'd walk through Harvard Yard on my way to the subway a lot of times. And at one point, somebody had built this cardboard box fort in the middle of the winter and had spray painted Fort Awesome on it. And so I have this spectacular photo from that as well. It's actually hanging in our office on the wall right now. And it's out there on the internet somewhere. You can probably track it down. But so Fort Awesome is something, Fort Awesome was always the original organization that produced Font Awesome. And Rob was the one who came up with the idea of, well, instead of, Fort Awesome, what if you called it Font Awesome? So that's really where the name itself comes from. So Fort Awesome, we originally launched as a service called Fonticons. Basically, the big idea there is that just like Helvetica is not the only typeface you need on the internet. It's great and it's spectacular, but it's not the only one you need. Maybe you need a different look, a different style, a different feel to it. And we feel the same way about icons as well. Font Awesome is great, but sometimes it's not the exact look that you need. And there are lots of phenomenally talented icon designers out there. And so Fort Awesome is our attempt to bring a lot of those icon sets together into one place. And so on the site, you can mix and match your perfect icon set from the styles that you are looking for. You can upload your own. You can actually serve typefaces and images from there as well now too. But that's been actually our big focus for the past several years on building out Fort Awesome.
So is Fort Awesome, let's just put it in quotes here, successful?
I mean, I think it's not bad. It's not anything that's going to employ four of us over the long term for the time being, but it's definitely enough to continue to invest into. I still think that's where the puck is going eventually. I think that Font Awesome. I love Font Awesome, but I think that sometimes the style isn't perfect for your website all the time. And you might need something else. I also think that performance is a huge deal, and just serving the individual icons that your site needs really helps out with performance. And when every second of load time cuts your conversion, whatever that conversion is, cuts it by 7%, performance is really a lot more important than I think sometimes we prioritize it.
So we're talking about failed successes, things that you've done along the way to iterate on essentially sustainability. How do these two play together then? So if you got Fort Awesome, you got Font Awesome. Fort Awesome is the overarching org. Is it the LLC or the company, so to speak, that
it is
owns the copyright to Font Awesome? That's what that acts as?
Yep, it is.
And so I guess as products, how do they parallel one another? Yeah,
so really Font Awesome and Font Awesome Pro will be individual typefaces in that broader service. And so the way this is going to work is for everybody who supports the Kickstarter, if you're also a Fort Awesome customer or you become one, you'll have that entire set automatically added to your library of icon sets so that you can use all of that to piece it together. You can also upload your own logos, your own individual sort of things that we may not have in the sets or that you want to be a little bit different.
Coming back to open source, why do you think open source is the catalyst, or do you think open source was a catalyst for this, as you said earlier, this popularity that you couldn't ignore anymore?
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, if we had made Font Awesome commercial from the get-go, I mean, it was definitely an option to think about. If we'd made it commercial from the get-go, I think we would have just been spending a lot of time trying to make money off of it, and it would have just been kind of a distraction. And so, I mean, I completely attribute it's being open source to its broader success. But there's a lot that we don't have time to do on Font Awesome. There's a lot of great things that we want to add to it, and so that's really where the Kickstarter came out of. Font Awesome right now is about 675 icons as of its last release, which was 4.7. And we actually released 4.7 the same day that we launched the Kickstarter because we wanted to make it clear to the community that we're still very, very much focused on the open source and the free version of Font Awesome. That's where our roots are. That's never going to change. That said, our repo has many, many thousands of open issues on GitHub with icon requests. I attribute that to the reason that we just got the numbers from GitHub that last year, Font Awesome had more contributors than any other open source project. Full stop. We had more than anybody else, and I think that's because there's a real strong desire for so many different icons. But if you look at a lot of those requests, they're not necessarily something that a lot of people have, but it's a very strong need for a small set of people. And that's where we got this idea for Font Awesome Pro. Our stretch goals for every 25 grand that we raise, we make another icon set. We make another icon pack, based on a specific category. And for every one of those categories, we add 10 of those to Font Awesome Free, and then we'll add another 30 to Font Awesome Pro. So this was really a way for us to completely blow out the sheer number of icons before we really knew, how great that demand was going to be. And so far, we've got 21 additional icon packs funded, and that's 21 in addition to the 6 that we were already planning for Font Awesome Pro. So 27 total icon packs, around 40 icons a pop in there is that's a lot of icons.
On the open source front, I'm kind of curious, as part of this popularity, as part of this catalyst, since you agree with my term there.
Absolutely.
Because that's what it seemed to me was like, it had Font Awesome not been open source, it wouldn't have become what I would personally consider as like this standard for icons on the web. Like maybe even in terms of how their implementation are, being a font now with the new version offering SVG, the accessibility things you've done, over in 4.6, and then the way you implement those in CSS, and ultimately support preprocessors like less or Sass or what have you. I'm curious how the actual icons themselves, the libraries got supported and influenced by the open source community. So I know you got, and I don't even know how you deal with this, but you got 3,700 plus issues on your GitHub repository. So that's tons. You got almost 6,000 closed, but what's been the community's impact towards new icons? How does that play?
Yeah, so as a matter of fact, the community itself is primarily what drives the new icons that we make in every single version. So we typically take a look at the most requested icons and we'll just kind of go off the list. And so the last release we did, there's a handshake icon that's been sitting there for far too long. I had actually tried to design it on 3 separate occasions, and it's just a really, really hard icon to design and make it readable at small sizes. But that had about 300 upvotes, and we hadn't got to it yet. And so a lot of our issues that are really, really requested by a lot of people, they may only have 100 upvotes, and we don't have time to get to it. And another part of the problem that happens when you're completely led by the community is that you end up with sort of some patchy support. And so you might have, one handshake icon that's not outlined, one that is. You might not have, all of the right matching icons in a particular theme, because if you're doing individual requested icons, you sometimes miss that holistic picture. So right now, we're adding icons primarily based on what the community is asking for specifically. And so Font Awesome 5 is going to give us a chance to go back and really consider the larger picture, specifically around these themed icon category packs.
When you say patchy support, do you mean technical support for sure? Not so much technical, like I'm going to help you support technical support, but more like technical in the font style or the icon style of technical, meaning that the actual icon you implement may have slight variations from variation to variation, basically.
Absolutely. And so, for instance, a lot of icons in Font Awesome will have a solid version of the icon. They'll have an outlined version. They might or might not have a version with a circle behind that object, or a square, or an outlined square. And so sort of along the way, we're missing a few of them here and there, because as we did them one off, we didn't consider, the entire system of how these work. And so the new version, for every icon, we're going to have a solid version that's in Font Awesome Free. And then in Font Awesome Pro, there's going to be an outlined version. And we just hit the stretch goal recently to develop a thin outline style as well for each one of those icons. So there's really a lot that goes into those different styles, and having them all match and all be visually very cohesive, so that when you put 2 very different icons next to each other, they still sort of feel like they go together.
This seems like a very time-intensive project. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. I was just looking at the numbers so far, and we're redesigning every single icon in Font Awesome free from scratch, and all of the stretch goals that we've hit so far. We're looking at, probably at least, it takes about us on average probably an hour to design every icon. And so we're looking at probably a total of 3,000 icons so far-ish. That's going to take a little while. Yeah. It's very, very intensive. And the thin style, it's possible that we could just change the weight and not really redesign the icon at all. But in order to get pixel perfection and in order to really get it on Retina as well, every single one of those thin icons is going to need to be redesigned. It's not just a variant of the regular outline. It's going to be completely redesigned as well.
The reason why I ask about time intensivity is because with this many issues, with this kind of community interaction, with this kind of success built upon open source, the free time from so many people out there giving back to this project, to its success, getting to where it's at, like that's a lot of time to do. And I'm thinking, how in the world, if you don't find ways to sustain, which is something we always try to come back to, especially when you have a project like this that really requires so much time, not just from you and some other core leaders, but some of the community as well, is like, how do you get to a point where you can actually like keep giving your time without feeling like you've been overburdened, or where you're like, man, I got family, I've got friends, I've got life, I've got work, how do you keep giving to this? And so I say that to probably get to hopefully what might be the next layer for this, which is Font Awesome 5, the Kickstarter, and all the things you're doing to get to the point where you're at now.
Yeah, I mean, it is a good bit of work. And there are a lot of people that have been really, really helpful along the way. One time I noticed on GitHub that there was another guy out there that was just really nicely and politely responding to issues. He was, letting them know sort of the expectations we have for contributing guidelines. He's just being like a really, really awesome community member. And so we asked him, hey, do you want to take on a more official role? And so Jeremiah's the guy that typically handles a lot of the day-to-day issues on the Font Awesome GitHub repo. And I tell you what, that guy is prolific and he is unbelievably appreciated. So there is a lot that's going to go into continuing to keep Font Awesome 5, continue to keep that free version updated and excellent. But a lot of it is, if we can figure out a way to eat, we can basically figure out a way to keep this alive and keep this growing. And so, that's exactly what the Kickstarter was really sort of about. Was Font Awesome has, gotten some great success, but it looks like what people really want more of is more icons.
Yeah.
And, we're just not going to be able to get to the 3,000, requested icons on there. So maybe we can figure out a way where we can make that work. Maybe we can figure out a way to where everybody can sort of get involved in this. And so as of today, we actually, the Kickstarter has just done so phenomenally, so much better than we expected, that we had our original early backer goals for the first week. And we just opened those up to everybody for the rest of the Kickstarter campaign, so that everybody can get Font Awesome Pro for $20.
Wow. I saw that and I was like, that's really awesome to one, give the community a way to because there's no one out there saying, hey, I want to keep using Font Awesome totally for free, Dave. Keep working your butt off, and the rest of the community can just keep doing what you're doing, with no way to, as you said, eat, or no way that this is helping you eat. Keep racking up those issues, keep giving me this free stuff. No one wants to say that. Everyone out there who's ever used Font Awesome to some degree wants to find some way to give you something to keep making this project awesome, which is a great pun there for this. But so $20. Now that you're talking about the Kickstarter, let's talk about that. So
yeah,
$20 is the opening. I guess you call them goals. Is that what you call them? Pledges, goals?
Yeah, on Kickstarter they call them pledges, and so the first pledge at the very top is for $20, and that gets you the early backer price for Font Awesome Pro, which we extended to the rest of the Kickstarter. That license for Pro includes, it's an individual license or a small business license that covers up to 100 people at a company.
That's
so we tried to make something. Yeah. We tried to make it really, really flexible, honestly, where it would be something that would be cheap enough that everybody could use. And flexible enough in how it's used. I mean, trying to count based on the number of designers that are in your company or the number of the computers that it's installed on, I think that's kind of hard to keep track of. So we're trying something new that we haven't seen before, that we're trying to, is a way just to keep it simple. But what that license gives you is it gives you the, originally we were planning on having only 1,000 more icons in Font Awesome Pro and a full SVG framework. And so this really allows us, like I said, we've got 21 stretch goal icon packs that have been reached. That's going to be another, 700-800 icons right there. Who knows how many it'll be before the end of it. And we're going to keep that. We're going to keep that 25 every $25,000 that's raised. There's another icon pack. Everybody gets that particular stretch goal, and we've got lots more stretch goals going on too.
Wow.
So we've got a set of duotone icons. This one's really, really fun. I've been itching to do this one technically for a while because you can obviously do it with SVG, but you can also do it with icon fonts as well. So basically, for the top 200 most popular icons in Font Awesome, we've got data from tens of millions of websites. So we actually know which icons people are using most. We're going to pick the top 200 of those, and we're going to separate that out into layers. We're going to have one layer that's full opacity and one layer that's 50%, so that you basically can continue to get all of the ease of use of Font Awesome where it's the right color, but the other layer is going to be 50% opacity. So you get this awesome duotone sort of multicolor effect out of it.
Yeah, kind of like a layered effect even. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's the first stretch goal. Then we're making, I'm going to be writing about our process for how we make this icon set. So designing icons is kind of a meticulous business. And so this, we're putting out an ebook. We're going to collect all of the blog posts that we put together for this into an ebook and distribute that. We're making design plugins for Sketch, Illustrator, and Photoshop. We actually, when we hit the $300,000 goal, we decided to put basic SVG support into Font Awesome 5 free, so that we're giving back not just into the people who are supporting Pro, but to the whole community along the way as well. So Font Awesome free will have all of those icons will be bare SVG files, so that they're you can use them in your sites if you want that way, or you can use them a little bit more easily on the desktop. We're doing an icon subsetter where you've got a desktop tool that will allow you to select just the icons your site is using, and we'll make those files for you.
Wow.
We also reached thin icon style as well. So we've hit, so many stretch goals so far, and we really wanted to pace these out so that everybody wins along the way.
That's good. Let's we're getting close. I just realized we're close to our next break. I wanted to dive deep into Font Awesome 5 and the Kickstarter, but we're gonna have to do that right after this break. So we got 2 more stretch goals you didn't mention there. So when we come back from that break, we'll go into the next 2, which is iOS and Android support, and this last one, which is Font Awesome Pro CDN. We'll take this break real quick. We'll come back. We'll dive even further into the Kickstarter, Font Awesome 5, and these 2 additional stretch goals we haven't covered yet. So we'll break back. Hey everyone, Adam Stacoviak here, editor-in-chief of Changelog, and I'm talking to a Rollbar customer. Rollbar puts errors in their place. Rollbar.com/changelog. Check them out. Get 90 days of the Bootstrap plan totally for free. I had a conversation with Paul Bigger, the founder of Circle CI, and he talked deeply about how they use Rollbar and how important that tool is to their developers. Take a listen.
Circle CI is a continuous integration and continuous delivery platform. Our customers are the developers in an organization. Developers rely on us heavily as part of their deployment workflow.
So clearly, you're like a part of the machine that should not break. Should not break, right? If you break, you're losing trust, you're losing value, and ultimately you're not delivering your brand promise. Let's talk about the obvious question here, which is, how do you use Rollbar? So not just how do you use Rollbar, but why you use Rollbar?
So I was talking about doing continuous delivery there, and one of the key parts about doing continuous delivery, you don't just have to test your software, but you have to constantly keep track of it. You're going to be doing deploys 10 times a day or 20 times a day, and you have to know that each deploy works, and the way to do that is to have really good monitoring. And Rollbar is literally the thing that you need to do that monitoring. You need to make sure that every time you deploy, you're going to get an alert if something goes wrong, and that's exactly what Rollbar does for Circle CI for our infrastructure.
So let's assume anyone listening to this is someone who needs to use Rollbar. Someone needs to know about this tool, needs to know about this product, needs to know how it's changed how you do business because of it. I'd like them to know how important this tool is to you. And a better question might even be, could you have done what you're doing with Circle CI without Rollbar's help?
We operate at serious scale, and literally the first thing we do when we create a new service is we install Rollbar in it. Like we need to have that visibility. And without that visibility, it would be impossible to run at the scale we do, and certainly with the number of people that we have. Like we're a relatively small team operating a major service, and without the visibility that Rollbar gives us into our exceptions, it just wouldn't be possible. If there's people out there who ship code without Rollbar, I can only imagine the pain that they're going through.
Oh, that's awesome. Thanks, Paul. I appreciate your time. So listeners, we have a special offer for you. Go to rollbar.com/changelog, sign up, get the Bootstrap plan for free for 90 days. That's 300,000 errors tracked, totally for free. Give Rollbar a try today. Head over to rollbar.com/changelog. All right, we're back from the break with Dave. We're talking about Font Awesome 5 and specifically this Kickstarter. I mean, $30,000 as the initial goal. I don't know if that was I'm about to ask you, was that a true, real goal, or did you really think you'd only do $30,000? Is this $500,000 you're at it right now with 29 days to go? Is that a complete and utter surprise to you and the rest of the team?
Well, I'll tell you the truth. I think we were hoping for more than 30,000. But I mean, we were going to make Font Awesome 5. You know, we asked ourselves, what's the number that we're making it anyway? And so really, we'd probably have made it anyway. But we wanted a goal that would be, you know, sort of reasonable, that we'd be perfectly happy to do all this work, even if that's all that was met. So that was really how we came up with that number.
And so we took the tail end of that last break talking about the different stretch goals. And I think what's interesting to just clearly mention, in case it wasn't clear enough mentioned by you, is that each of these stretch goals are, you know, things that, one, help you have more money to make sure that you all have the time and employment to be able to do this stuff and all that good stuff. But it's also giving back to the open source project, which is super cool. Like each of these stretch goals listed on your Kickstarter campaign, they're not just self-fulfilling for you know, the people paying for them. They're also feeding back into the open source, open license version of this. But getting back to the two stretch goals we didn't mention, which haven't been met yet, which the next one that's close to being met, you're like maybe $45,000 away from your next stretch goal, which is the iOS and Android support, which means that you're going to have iOS and Android, you're going to be able to easily use Font Awesome Pro in those two different applications or those two different platforms. And then you also have Font Awesome Pro CDN. What are these next two stretch goals?
Yeah, so these two stretch goals we've been talking about for a couple of days now. We had originally the first set of stretch goals that we had made were blown through in less than a day. And so we had to come up with a second set. Those have been completely passed through as well. And so this is our third set. We've got a couple more up our sleeve here, but the two here that we've got listed right now are iOS and Android support. Really, the idea behind this is that we've got a lot of people who use Font Awesome in mobile apps, and we wanted to make that just that much easier for them to use it. And another piece of that is when we meet that goal, we're going to open source that same support for Font Awesome free as well. And so basically anybody making a mobile app will be able to use Font Awesome free completely easily, you know, and not have to worry about anything. But for those that pay for Pro, you're going to get access to all those extra icons for making your next mobile app. And the next one, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say in the CDN, I noticed that you're also a user of Mac CDN. We love Mac CDN. I think they recently changed their brand to StackPath. So I'm not sure how you're changing your mentions back to that, but we're huge fans of Fastly around here. Our podcast is served by Fastly, so quick mention of that. But what is the CDN? What is this piece here?
Yeah, so this really comes out of another project of ours. About 4 or 5 months ago, we launched something that we called Font Awesome CDN. So it's completely free, and that bandwidth is all provided for free by Mac CDN. Mac CDN has really been there for us, particularly from the very beginning. And you know, Justin Dorfman specifically was such a huge champion for developers.
We love Justin right here.
Such a good guy.
He's
such
awesome.
a good guy. Yeah, and another one of those guys that I just cannot speak highly enough of. So Font Awesome CDN, the notion of that really was we wanted people to be able to do things like update their version of Font Awesome without having to push any code. So you give us your email address, we send you a unique code that you can put in your website. And if you ever want to change it later, you can come back in and update the version. You can turn on something that we developed that we're really, really proud of that we called auto accessibility. And you can control async. You can actually do CSS or JavaScript. There's so many different things that you can do with that. And so Font Awesome CDN completely free to everybody to use. And really the idea there was that's been such a helpful thing. A lot of people are, so many people have signed up for that and are using it actively, that we wanted to do something very similar for Font Awesome Pro. Right now, you can download the files, but then you'll have to serve them yourself,
Right.
which for a lot of people really isn't a problem. But that's not everybody who uses Font Awesome. So we wanted a solution that was just as easy to use as Font Awesome CDN was. And so you'll be able to, if we reach that goal, we're going to give everybody access to a year of Font Awesome Pro CDN so that they can easily serve up their icons. And we're going to make it easy for them to just load the specific icon packs their site is using so that they can keep their pages small and fast loading, because we know how important that is.
So this comes back to that icon subsetter where you can just choose the ones you're using and then obviously serve them not so much from your own disk, from your own server, but from the CDN that you're providing with Font Awesome Pro CDN. Or is it says Font Awesome Pro CDN in the stretch goal. Is it Font Awesome CDN or is it Font Awesome Pro CDN?
It'll be the same underpinnings of the way that we're doing Font Awesome CDN, but it's specifically for serving up Pro. Since Pro is a commercial icon set, we wanted to have a way where it's really, really easy, sort of like other commercial typefaces, might get served up with Typekit or a similar service.
Right. So it says there we're giving all Pro backers a year of service. So those people that back at that $20 level, that initial level, they're going to get this once you hit this stretch goal. So it's like that first initial pledge of $20 keeps getting sweeter and sweeter as the amount goes up, in terms of this Kickstarter.
Yeah, I mean, that was really the idea here. We're engineers and we're designers in heart, and so the success of this has been really such a fun thing for us to basically, think about all of those problems that we know about and we hear about and have for ages, and now we've got a way to fund a lot of those solutions. And so that's what's been really, really fun. Font Awesome Pro CDN, I'm particularly excited about. The icon subsetter is really designed for our real tweakers, our developers there who really have a lot of time to be able to spend on performance. We wanted to do something a little less granular with being able to load just the icon pack. So the subsetter, you can choose individual icons. Font Awesome Pro CDN, you'll be able to pick the major icon packs. So that even people who may not be able to handle, some command line tools very well, will still be able to keep their website pretty slim and speedy.
Let's talk about this video. I mean, I don't know how you did it. I don't know if this was, I want to know the intentionality behind this thing, because this video alone is reason enough to give you $20. I mean, I don't even care if I get Font Awesome. Just, I'm so thankful for the creativity behind this. I want to know the story, cause Kickstarter, they lead with the video, right? If you don't have a slam-in video that tells your story in the most compelling way, and that varies by project, then you may be just dead in the water. But in my opinion, you absolutely grand slam this thing. This is by far the coolest, best video for Font Awesome. I didn't expect it. I thought it was you as the main character for a bit, because I see the pixelated Dave, and I don't know you personally, so I haven't seen your face, so to speak, besides the avatar you carry around. But I may have seen a picture of you, but I don't know, all your characteristics. I thought this was you. What is the story behind this video?
Yeah, so I mean, if you want to see me and you want to see just how bad a Kickstarter video is that I starred in, go look at our old project called Font Awesome Black Tie. It was a different looking icon set. They came in multiple weights, but that's me on that video. It's me. I'm just dangerous enough with a camera, with an SLR, to be able to shoot a decent video, and that's what it looks like when we do it. So we learned pretty well last time that, oh my goodness, this is not our wheelhouse. So we've got to have somebody else look at it. And, I got to say, we did Y Combinator last summer, and that the community of folks at Y Combinator are just so helpful and so spectacular. And so another one of the Y Combinator startups called Video Pixie is a place where you can go and you basically, give the details about your project. And then all of these professional editors and writers and people who shoot the video can basically bid on your project. And so with some help from Thomas there at Video Pixie, we found a company called Knox Avenue. And they're in Los Angeles, and they are just some of the most phenomenally talented people you can ever expect. I mean, so we were originally looking at Sandwich Video, and Sandwich Video, you'll see them out there for a lot of big name projects. I think Slack has a video made by Sandwich. There's some, and they produce absolutely amazing content.
Yeah.
But their prices these days start at $250,000 because they're just really, really good.
A lot of money. Yeah.
A lot of money, but you know what? If you've got it, they are spectacular. So honestly, Knox Avenue is probably just as good, but they're just not famous yet. They're just, they're a little younger.
I don't know. After watching the video, I would say not just as good. I would say as good for sure. I'm familiar with Sandwich Video. I love them too, but I think that this video is by far phenomenal. I mean, I just think they did a great job doing this for you.
Thank you. I mean, we had so much fun writing, and being out there for the shoot. It was great. So
it was in Burbank, right? You said it was in California.
Yeah, this particular bakery, which I don't even know how they found this place. I could not imagine a better place to shoot this. That's not a set. That's an actual bakery.
Wow. There. Okay.
And it's just gorgeous naturally, and it just works on camera so well. But yeah, it's called Half Baked. And and they're in Burbank, and this place is just gorgeous. And so I went out there for the weekend doing the shoot, and in typical low budget Los Angeles starving actor style, the shoot started at 6 p.m. and it went until 6 a.m. And these people they're used to it. There are probably 20 people all told between the actors, the extras, the director of photography, the actual director. There was just so many people and so much stuff going on, and these guys are so talented and they're so good, and we had so much fun trying to put as much personality into that script as we could. We're huge nerds. Everybody at Fawn Awesome, we are huge nerds, and we really enjoy just trying to put that in every little corner of everything that we do. And the script in the video is just really kind of an example of that.
I love how it opens up and it's like you can always add more sprinkles. I mean, the opening alone was enough. I mean, it was amazing. And now that you said Half Baked in Burbank, the bakery there, I went ahead and scrolled back to 106 roughly in the video, where I forget the guy's name on the outside. He's like, "You changed the recipe." He's like, "No, we didn't change the recipe." He's like this angry customer outside, and he says it again. "You changed the recipe." No, man, we didn't change the recipe. You know that. And he kind of gets sweet and he kind of calms down. But in that shot, you can see half and then the B of baked, and you can kind of see their logo in the window. So you can even see they made a cameo of your, of this. That's pretty cool.
And the guy who stars in the video, Rob Michelson, he ad-libbed so many little bits and pieces in there that we didn't have originally in the script, and he's just so funny. And that part at the beginning, you can always add more sprinkles bit, that was him ad-libbing.
Was that him? Oh yeah, man, that was so good. I made a note of that. I was like, I want to mention that. You can always add more sprinkles.
Yeah, Rob was absolutely spectacular. And my other favorite sort of secret star in the video is a guy named Albert, who was just such fun to hang out with that whole evening. He's the baker. He's the guy at the very end, sort of dancing in the background. And he shows up sort of throughout the video in random places, but he's my favorite sort of little secret hidden thing in there. He's spectacular too.
So I guess what I'm, maybe this isn't exactly pertinent to Fawn Awesome 5, but I think this just shows to your level of commitment and your attention to detail is the stellarness of this video. And while it may not be you and the Fawn Awesome team particularly shooting the video, editing the film, doing all the script writing, that you had a phenomenal team to work for this and do this with you. Like, it's just so good. Like, when I watched it for the first time, that's the first thing I said to the Changelog team. I was like, because Justin was coordinating this call with you and helping us meet up with you and help telling your story. And I went to the Kickstarter, of course. The first thing I did was watch the video because that's what you do. And I was just like, you got to check this out. The video is amazing. And we have our own films piece to Changelog here called Changelog Films, of course. and we like to do fun stuff. So we always love to see people get creative with film. And so I was immediately like hooked. And I don't know anybody else out there who feels the same way I do, but if you go to the Kickstarter and you see this video, it's by far like, I love how it says, talks about the staleness of version 4. So you're kind of like, again, negative self-talk, some self-deprecation there. And that was 3 years ago. Version 4 kind of got stale. How do they get stale? Well, this and that, and it kind of names all these different things. And it says, all this fun stuff. I think the video's awesome. I'm kind of rambling, but the video's awesome. I love it.
Thanks. I think the first time that Travis saw an early cut of that video, and this is before a whole lot of work was even finished on it, he was nearly in tears. And when it was all done, he said, "You know what? That video may be the best thing we ever do." So I thought that was at that point I was like, all right, I think we're doing all right here at this point. So
I got one more thing I want to mention to talk about in depth, which shouldn't be at the tail end, and I'm sorry it is, but is the SVG framework you talked about. But
yeah,
before we go there, I want to ask you one thing on this front: is the measure of the cost of the video. This is pre-Kickstarter, so this is like initial investment, so to speak. Like this is you banking on having to do something capitalistic, your own capital into it to get to the point where you can actually say, "Hey, world, here we are. Here's our plan. Come support us." Was it scary to make that choice?
I mean, it was a little bit. We've taken a small amount of funding, over the past few years, and we really are really conscious about trying to stretch that as far as possible. And this was the video. It was cheap for what we got, but it was there's a good bit of money that went into that, and so yeah, it was definitely a nerve-wracking thing to put this much up, and for a company that we didn't know personally. For Knox Avenue to shoot this for us and help us write it. But I tell you what, as soon as we started working with them, it just became obvious that not only was this going to easily be worth our money, this was just going to be better than we could have ever hoped. So yeah, I think we're just really, really happy with how things turned out.
Real quick, what was their name again so I can make a note of it for the show notes?
Knox Avenue Films.
Knox Avenue Films. So I'm just assuming that's KNOX Avenue, right?
Correct. Yep.
I'm sorry. Googling it now. Going to add it to the show notes before we move on to the next topic. Sweet. Knox Avenue. We've got you.
Knox-avenue.com.
Cool. We're going to add that to the show notes. So if you want to call them to work on your project, then now they're famous if they weren't already famous. So, sad that this is the last thing we're talking about, but the SVG framework, what is this? Is it something that will be its own open source repo? What's the story behind it? You mentioned ebooks and blog posts earlier and stuff like that, but what is this SVG framework that you're talking about?
So the SVG framework, so the $300,000 stretch goal was to put basic SVG into Font Awesome free. And so all those SVG files are going to be there. They're going to be really easy to use individually. The framework, really the idea behind this framework is there are some great advantages to SVG, but they're a little trickier to work with. Once you have it figured out, it's great and you've got a great system going. But for some people, it's a little more complicated than Font Awesome is, which is dropping a single line of code in your website and you're good to go. So we wanted to take that same ease of use of Font Awesome and bring it to SVG. So if you want SVG, if you want your icons to be the same color naturally as the text that's next to it, there's some good stuff you can do. But we also wanted to be able to do things like size and drop shadow and a lot of those additional CSS features that you also get with icon fonts. We wanted to bring that same ease of use and that same power to SVG. So that's really our vision behind that SVG framework, which is a part of Pro and is for all of the Pro backers.
So is it something that needs its own repo, or is it just simply a way of doing things?
There's going to be enough code behind it. In order to pull it off, we're going to need some bits of JavaScript. And so Rob Bindle, our local JavaScript master, is going to be doing a good portion of that. It could have its own repo, that's possible, but I think it'll just be a part of the Font Awesome Pro repo. So all of our backers, something we didn't mention is that for everybody who's a backer, we're going to have a private repo where everybody can have access to the code and they can follow along in our development, our alpha, beta, pre-releases, all of that along the way. People can follow along. We'll be getting input from people on specific issues, on which icon categories we're developing, all along the way. And so the code for that is going to be in that same repo.
And earlier you mentioned that you've got a couple more things up your sleeve in terms of stretch goals. Maybe tease us. Can you share some stuff here with the listeners? What's a stretch goal that isn't listed that may be listed? What's some ideas you have?
Yeah, so one that's gonna, and the reason that a lot of these aren't listed there yet is because, and that are a little bit higher dollar value on them is because they're going to take a lot of effort for us to do well. We don't typically like to do projects that we can't do just phenomenally well. And so one of those that I'm really excited about is a community website. So it's basically a place where everybody who's a part of Font Awesome can go and interact, help us vote specifically on icons. We can use GitHub to be able to do voting on icon, but it's not the greatest interface. We also want to make it easier for people to have access to the latest versions and have a forum where people can help each other out. Really a more dedicated place that we'll hang out at and that we'll answer questions on as well, where the entire community can get together and help each other out.
And that sleeve you mentioned, that up your sleeve, what I think is interesting is it seems that all these stretch goals were born out of, back to the open source piece of this, back to the community you mentioned, is sort of like deep in these roughly 8,000 or 9,000 issues between the closed and the open. So I'm assuming that most of what you're pulling out of this this hat you've got is from what the community's already asked for. So this 4-ish years of history is playing to the future benefit of this Kickstarter, and then also kind of playing to the stretch goals that you're creating.
Yeah, I mean that's absolutely true. We we listen to everything people say, positive or negative, and we internalize that, and you're exactly right. That's where all of these stretch goals are coming out of.
So aside from going to fontawesome.io and clicking on the banner that shows up in the top for the Kickstarter and going to learn about that and potentially becoming a pro backer at $20, it's still open source, so you don't have to pay to play. What are some ways, for Font Awesome collectively, as the open source piece, what are some ways the community can step in to help out? Like, I know you got so many issues, like where you mentioned Jeremiah earlier, how that person was, playing a great role just naturally in issues, and you kind of graduated to a role that was a bit more formalized, things like that. Where can people listening to this that absolutely love Font Awesome, loved hearing this story of yours, and just thinking, Dave, Travis, the rest of the team, how can I step in and help out? What places can they go to do these things?
Yeah, the issues there, the more that people help out, the more that they kind of know the community and help out there naturally, that is absolutely so unbelievably helpful. Jeremiah does so much work on that, and we'd love to be able to give him a little bit of help out there. I think there are some other places too. There are Stack Overflow issues that we never get to if people want to start helping out with those. There's really just so many places of people asking for help on Font Awesome we just don't have time to get to, that those are really, really helpful for us. And and some of it might be helpful to get the word out about the Kickstarter. The more that we are able to do with the Kickstarter, the more that we're able to put back into Font Awesome Free and into Font Awesome Pro. And that's a huge thing for us. There are places also where companies can get involved helping out. One of our rewards that we've got on here is folks can get their company logo added into Font Awesome Free and to Font Awesome Pro. So there are really kind of ways for everybody at a lot of different levels to get involved where it can all give back to the community.
I think it's interesting that your logo in Font Awesome Free and Pro, because it's a form of marketing. It's a form of support, so it's a form of donation. So you kind of give a little, you get a little, so much as so to speak, as a company. So like, let's say there's a very large company out there, 50 million users, using Font Awesome either as a base for the icons they're creating, or just straight up using Font Awesome. This is a way for them to honor the open source piece of this, your time, Travis's time, and the rest of the team's time. Making this possible, and also the community's time, triaging these issues, supporting the community, helping out, being helpful, writing documentation, caring about accessibility, which is something we didn't get to talk about, which you've only got 2 minutes left, so we can't, but we could if you really wanted to. But
it's in there. Check out auto accessibility and check out all the accessibility changes we made in 4.6. We're really, really proud of those.
Yeah, it's in version 4.6 you did that. So I mean, this is a way for those companies to go to the Kickstarter and say, hey, you know what, I'd like to get a little and give a little. That's really awesome. That's I like that. I guess, yeah, we got 2 minutes. Tell me more about the accessibility. I know that this is really important for icons in general, because when we redid changelog.com recently, one of the things that we ran into with some of the things we had done some branding around like what we call sub brands, so to speak. So podcasts, films, news, things like that. When we rolled that out into the design, we had some issues where, well, it's an icon. It doesn't say what it is. So can you talk a bit about give me kind of the high level overview of accessibility and what it means to you for Font Awesome, but specifically how you implement it in 4.6?
Yeah, and let me first shout out, like, the reason that 4.6 was able to have such great accessibility improvements is another place that the community got involved. We had so many folks who know so much more about that world than we do. And we kind of, through the issues, were able to get so much feedback on them that we're really, really happy with where it came. But, the big thing on icons is, are they of semantic value or are they just decorative?
Yeah.
If they're just decorative, all you got to do is throw an aria hidden equals true tag on the icon and you're good to go. If they are semantic, there's some extra stuff you need to do, and we added some more support for that. If you're using Font Awesome CDN, we have a feature called auto accessibility, that all you need to do on the icon, if it does have semantic value, is throw a title on it. So if this represents, hours left or time of day or whatever, you throw title equals time of day, and then the screen reader will see that. So we really tried to make it as simple as possible. I think a lot of the times the reason people don't get accessibility right, like me, the reason is because they just don't know. And there's so many things to know about it. And it's it's unbelievably important to do well, but sometimes it doesn't pop the priority stack for folks. And that's why we wanted to invest as much as we could to make it as easy as possible so that your icons and your site are accessible to everybody.
That's awesome. We all need that. We all care about accessibility, and I think it's awesome that you made it a priority to implement it in 4.6. And then also there's a stretch goal too that adds to it. You said there's a new font pack coming around accessibility. Is that right? Or there was one in 4.6, but there's more added.
Yeah, that was another piece of 4.6. So now that we've actually got a full set of accessibility specific icons to represent, a full gamut of what's needed there. So definitely check those out. And and that was another thing that we got a lot of feedback from the community on to make sure we were doing it right.
Very cool. Well, I know I got to ask you a lot of stuff about your history, about Font Awesome's history, about where this is going, the Kickstarter, the video, and everything in between. But I may have missed something. So if I missed something, this is your chance to share it. What if I haven't asked you? What would you like to share with the community before we tail out this show?
I think so much of just a complete and total satisfaction in life comes from the people that you surround yourself with. And so I cannot thank enough the team that we've got at Fort Awesome, for Travis Chase, Rob Madole, Brian Talbot, and those guys are just spectacular. I mean, I cannot speak highly enough about those guys as well. And I am so lucky is not exactly the right word, but to be working with those guys. They are absolutely spectacular. I would put our team of 4 up against any in the world to ship and deliver usable software on time.
That is awesome. That is very awesome. And I think the best way to close this might be just to simply say you can always add more sprinkles, right?
Always
add more sprinkles. Well, Dave, it was a pleasure to meet you, have this time to chat with you, talk through this big piece of your life, this awesome open source project, the next phase of it, Font Awesome 5, the Kickstarter. And I still can't believe, I'm going to go back to the tab real quick here before we tail off, is you're right now, because the interface is live updating, is $456,000 as of the recording. So we're recording this on November 1st, mid-afternoon roughly. You got 29 days to go. We're going to put the link to this Kickstarter in the show notes. If you're just listening now and you don't feel like going to the show notes, go to fontawesome.io. There's a banner at the top, whether you're on mobile or desktop. You'll see that. Click that. Go to the Kickstarter. Watch the video first because you have to. But keep in mind also the goal that you're at. I mean, I think it's just phenomenal to see this kind of support and just to see this kind of success for this project for you, and then what it's going to actually do for the community. So congrats to you and the team. But that is it for this show here. So I want to say thanks to all the listeners tuning in. You're awesome. We love you. Justin Dorfman, dude, you're awesome. Thank you for the hug at All Things Open. Thank you for connecting us to Dave and this story and helping us connect with him and share this story, because we think that more people need to hear your kind of story, Dave. What do you think? I mean, you got a pretty awesome story, right?
I definitely appreciate hearing that. I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
I think your story's awesome.
I think the truth is that everybody's got a story inside of them.
That's true. And that's kind of that's us in a nutshell. We believe that everybody out there has a story to tell in open source, and developer, designer, imposter, not an imposter, self-deprecating, negative self-talk, whatever you do, dude, you're awesome. And I thank you for all you've done here. And listeners, we also thank you for tuning in. But Dave, that is it for this show, man. So let's say goodbye.
Thanks for having me on the Changelog. I feel I'm just really, really humbled to be in such good company. I really appreciate it.
The feeling is mutual, Dave. Thank you.
All right, have a good one.